Hello, everyone, and welcome to Backlog Banter. I'm Tucker, and that is Abram. And today we're going to be doing a very fun review. This is our first game that we're going to be discussing that we got early. We were embargoed. Isn't that
We
crazy?
were.
We're moving up in the world. We're big brain boys here at Backlog Banter. But we're going to talk about GONNER2, as you might have seen from the title and the thumbnail. But this is a game that Abram was excited for. I did not have experience with the first game, unlike him, and we both played it a bit over the last few days, and we're gonna give you our thoughts on it, see if
Well,
it's worth purchasing.
yes, we are. And like Tucker said, just so everyone's very, very clear, we did get a review copy for this game. So this is off of a code we did not purchase with our own money. So keep that in
Yes,
mind.
true.
So thank you again to the publisher.
Yes.
But yeah, so like Tucker said, I played the original Gunner. It was a really great game back towards the beginning of the Switch's life.
Yeah.
It had an opportunity to really stand out there. And I was attracted to its roguelike elements. I was attracted to its art style. And I just really enjoyed it. So when the sequel got announced earlier this year, I was very excited to hop in.
Yeah.
Um, Having hopped in, I would say I am not as hot on the game as I had hoped I was going to be.
Yeah. And I would say, having hopped in, I am very not hot on the game
Sure.
at all. And I would like to put this out there as a disclaimer that I do have a large amount of respect for the developers and all the work that they put in, but I have so many problems with this game personally that I just can't in any good faith say that I enjoyed this game.
I think the first thing we need to do is just get the barrel of technical issues we had out of the way first.
Yeah.
Um, so we
That's the
got
core of my issue, by the way.
okay, yeah. So we got a Steam copy of the game.
Yep.
And the big focus of GONNER2 is its new co-op play. So we both played the game single player, and then we did Steam Remote Play to play together. Now, some of our frustrations can be chalked up to the fact that Steam Remote Play is not fantastic.
No.
And the fact that we had some frame rate hiccups, we had our connection drop. That's not something that we can hold against the game
Yeah.
because beyond the fact that this probably should have had online co-op, I really think that
Yes.
should have been there. But it's important to note that we did have some issues there, but we also had issues getting controllers to connect. We had
Yeah.
issues where our controllers would connect, and then all of a sudden, even playing single player, not online together, I would be controlling two characters.
Or we would be controlling the same character. That
We
was
did have
weird.
that. I had the game hard crash on me twice.
Yeah.
And I don't have a specifically powerful machine, but other than when it crashed, it ran totally fine. So I suspect it's not my hardware. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But I guess by the same token, if you have a less powerful machine, you're not going to have troubles running this game on a moment-to-moment basis, which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's important to note that our experiences were definitely colored a little bit by that.
Yeah, and honestly, it's that experience with the multiplayer, which, as you said, is one of the big new focuses of the sequel, that kind of frustrates me with this game. We, not only through Steam Remote Play and through frame rate issues and through connection issues, had technical problems with this game, but in my experience playing probably about an hour of multiplayer with you total, across multiple runs and multiple reconnects and having
Yeah.
you host the game and me host the game, I don't think this game is that designed for multiplayer, to be 100% honest. We had issues with when you die, you respawn at the beginning of this tube at the beginning of the level, but there's only one camera that follows one character, so you could be completely off the screen, and you would have to either find your way blindly through the level or have your friend go all the way back. There's also this mechanic where if you jump on your friend's head, they turn into a ball of mush and can't do anything for a second, which completely messes up their flow and essentially kind of acts as friendly fire because you can gimp your friend just on accident, and it's very weirdly designed in that way because we would just constantly be like, oh, you jumped on me, I can't do anything, you fall, you get attacked, it kind of messes you up. And I don't know, there's just a lot of things that come with the multiplayer aspect of this game that I did enjoy. I think having a friend alongside you doing double the damage and being able to watch each other's backs is really nice, but on that same regard, it becomes very difficult to play when you have another player around because of the fact that I mentioned before with the camera only following one person, or there being issues where you are able to mess each other up.
Yeah, and that was definitely disappointing. I think it's important because they just walk things back for a second and say that on the whole, Goner is a roguelike game.
Yeah.
And typically a lot of roguelike games are single player, especially these. It's a side-scrolling, mainly action shooter. You've got some twin stick control. It's got a gorgeous art style, which we'll talk about, but it's a game all about. I don't want to say trial and error, but it's about learning things as you go. It's not tutorialized. It's very much old school in that respect. You're thrown into the game. You're going to be doing runs to try to get deeper, to fight bosses, find new items and such. But no one's going to tell you what's happening. It's really about figuring things out in this weird, kind of creepy, surrealist world.
Sure.
And so getting to play that with Tucker seemed like it was going to enhance the experience of the first game.
Yeah.
But it detracted from it in a lot of mechanical ways, because Goner is a very chaotic game. It's a game that really demands that you're precise and deliberate with your movement. So when you're trying to work together in this manner and there's shit happening all around you, which I think is to the game's benefit in single player, in multiplayer, when it causes you to jump on each other, fuck up the other person's movement, it takes away from the experience, and it makes it, in my opinion, an experience that's much better had in single player.
Yeah. So I also played a good amount of this game in single player. I played a little bit before I played with you, and I played some while you were on a call with me, and then I played a little bit after. I'm not huge into roguelike games. I've had my experiences with them over the years, and I have a good amount of respect for the genre and how it can have people coming back. But my problem with this game, being a roguelike and not being able to get into it, is that I think it lacks a lot of the draw that other roguelikes have. There's not a lot to, at least for a first impressions, there's not any carrot on a stick to get you hooked. I never got a new item. I barely got any upgrades. I couldn't actually figure out how to spend my money on the keyboard. I couldn't find the button. That was a little bit weird. But unlike Spelunky, Binding of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon, every time you complete a room or a run, you can get a little bit of an upgrade, or you can get some money, you can find a shop. This game is spread out in terms of that content. So I had a hard time feeling the draw to want to go back and keep trying runs, because other than getting better and being able to kill more enemies and clear more screens, there wasn't a clear progression in terms of items or upgrades or anything that, I don't know, I didn't really feel like I was getting anywhere. And on top of that, there wasn't a tutorial for this game, and I didn't really understand certain mechanics, and I didn't really understand what certain enemies can do, what certain things in the environment can do. And it just left me feeling more confused and overwhelmed than anything. And because of the lack of direction of the game giving you things to do, or places to go, or things to collect, I kind of just felt like I was running in circles and ended up more frustrated than anything.
Yeah, it's important to note that this game treats the roguelike genre in a different way than other titles do.
Yeah.
It's way more of an arcadey, twitchy, score chasing experience.
Yeah.
Based on my time with the first game and what the second game sets up, there are some light things where if you get deep enough, you'll start finding different guns you can start out with in the future. Because we'll talk about the art style, which I think is probably the best feature of the game. But you begin each run in this interesting like little warm-up area, and you pick up your head and your backpack and your gun that you're going to go on the adventure with. And eventually you'll get different heads and guns and things like that. But that's not the draw of the game. The reason you're going to keep replaying Goner is for that score. And I think that is why it compels me as a pick up and play experience. But I know that you're not as big into that arcadey structure. So to kind of balance out what you were saying, I think that when you get into the groove of Goner, there's a lot to enjoy if you like score chasing. Star Fox 64 is my second favorite game of all time. I love chasing a score. And Goner works on this interesting chaining system where the more enemies you kill, the higher your chain becomes. It's a lot like Devil May Cry, where you got to be killing enemies constantly, because as soon as you're not, your chain's going to run down. But the interesting flip on this is when you get your chain up high enough, I believe it's to 10, the screen goes fucking bonkers. And you saw this happen when I was streaming the game for you
at approximately 4 FPS through the Discord screen sharing. So I could not understand what was going on, even less than you probably could.
Right. Yeah. Discord screen sharing is suboptimal in every respect. But when you're actually playing it, it's so empowering and adrenaline pumping when you get into that, because colors are inverting, explosions are huge. You feel like a badass, and your score is being racked up and up and up and up and up. And I think that is the heart of the game, and why it's a title I feel compelled to play like the original in really short bursts. This is a 15 to 20 minute burst game, I think. Sure. Where I can do a run, feel good about it, fuck up a run. Okay, I'm gonna do another one. I'm gonna get that good score. Then I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna step away. And I think that's where the game succeeds, because if you're looking for a more structured roguelike, a one that's gonna hold you for longer periods of time, I don't think you're gonna find that in Goner. And I think your perspective really speaks to the fact that the roguelike genre is moving in a direction that isn't where Goner is.
Yeah.
And I think that limits Goner's appeal for a lot of players.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just my perspective on it, and as I said, I'm not super familiar with the roguelike genre. I'm not super familiar with or interested in difficult games that
Hmm.
reward you more for trial and error and getting your ass beat, but then being able to conquer it. That's not my style. So I do respect a lot of what is going on here. It just doesn't interest me for the reasons that I mentioned. But one thing that does interest me is that goddamn art style.
It's a
Oh
fucking
my
gorgeous
god.
game.
I love colors. I like weird art styles. I like wacky little characters. I like shapes going around. I like my brain being messed with. The art style really does it for me here. I mean, I always liked the art style. The original Goner, whenever I would watch trailers for it or see it show up anywhere, I'm like, I kind of want to try that, even just for the art style, because I didn't even know that it was a roguelike. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the original game. I just knew that I really liked the art style, and I think that carries over here in a great way. I couldn't really particularly tell you how the visuals are upgraded, but I really, really did enjoy them. That's an aspect of the game that I don't have any complaints with.
What's interesting about the jump is that it's a similar style, but it's different in a lot of ways. The original Goner was a lot more minimalist in its presentation.
Okay,
The stages were building more in like lines instead of big blocks as they do here.
sure.
And I think that it gives this game a really bombastic feel. It's exciting. I do think that the game visually gets too chaotic.
Hmm.
And I think that's my personal biggest negative against the game, because it's a sensory overload a lot of the time,
Yeah, yeah,
which is to its benefit when you're getting into the rhythm. But when you're not in the rhythm, it can be fairly disorienting,
yeah,
because the game is colorful and gorgeous and it's fun to look at. But when you're looking at it, but you're also in the context of this really tough and really demanding um, 2D side-scrolling shooter, you can't have your focus be taken away. You can't have all these explosions, everything kind of cluttering your field of view to the point that this game does.
yeah.
So I think that its art style is absolutely wonderful, and I like its design and like its personality. But as it interfaces with gameplay, I think it loses a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, on top of the or opposite of the art style, in my opinion, the fact that I very much enjoyed it visually, but I personally did not get a lot of personality out of it because the game doesn't have. There's not really any intro. There's no characters to interact with. It's very simplistic in get into the gameplay and start shooting things. But even like when you hop into the main hub area, there's this big ghost guy floating around. I don't think you can interact with him as far as I played, which was a little bit disappointing. I kept hopping around, going on this little gramophone that's by him, trying to see if I could interact with it all because I expected there to be, that big guy there that's gonna tell me, okay, this is what you're doing. This is the point of your quest. Who are you? Why are you here? Why is the world like this? But I never really got that, and personally, that's something that I require to really get into a game. Things like Galaga or Space Invaders that are more simple high score, just get in and shoot, don't really appeal to me because I don't really feel much of a draw to continue playing if there's nothing to go for except for increasing your score. And that's obviously a gameplay loop that a lot of people are into. But I don't know, couldn't really get to me. But there's one last thing I wanted to mention about the art style and about the fact that the world sort of builds around you as you move. And I think that is a cool concept that worked really well in Bastion, a game that I really much enjoy. But I think that it can lead to some weird environmental issues here.
Mhm.
The world builds around you, but it doesn't build super fast. So if there's a hole in the ground, you can't tell if you're gonna drop onto a platform if there's nothing below, which can lead to some weird unfair deaths. And also the world building around you can mean that it can be easy to get lost because it's hard to remember how things are building around you, how the map, because there's not like a mini map or anything.
Right.
I don't know. I enjoyed that from a visual standpoint. From a gameplay, I feel like it really didn't help me feel in control of my environment, and it really led to me being overwhelmed and frustrated with the overall experience.
Sure. And I think where I'll leave it is just that we're approaching it from such different avenues, and that's
Yeah,
important to keep in mind as a player coming to the roguelike genre. If you're more like Tucker and you maybe say you want to pick up something like Hades that has that heavier story focus, that
yeah,
has these more persistent elements. For me, I'm already thinking about, man, I kind of want to do just a couple more runs because I like that twitchiness. I like that score chasing. I really like being thrown into the game and not being told what's happening and being able to figure that out on my own. That's the sort of thing that compels me in a more replayable experience like this.
yeah,
So from that perspective, I really actually did enjoy my time in single player with GONNER2. In co-op, I don't think it's nearly as elegant an experience, But in single player, I found myself actually engaging with it quite a bit. And although, like I said, I do think it gets a little bit busy visually, and I think that detracts from the gameplay in a real major way. But what, like I said, when you're in the groove, in the pocket, to use a phrase I don't really know quite if I use it right, but the fact is, when you get your combo up and you're feeling the game, it does feel very nice to play.
Yeah. And I think that most of my frustration with this game comes from the fact that I'm not familiar with that kind of game, but I was really excited to play it multiplayer with you, someone who was familiar with the game style because you'd played the first one, and then getting in there and not having the multiplayer work. It was just a bummer to me because I thought that, hey, I might not be into the score chasing, I might not be into getting my ass beat, but if I have a friend alongside me who can show me the ropes and help me through the levels, killing enemies, watching my back, all of that, I thought it would be a lot more fun. But having the issues that we did with multiplayer, it kind of felt like neither of the modes really engaged me, and I think that's why I was mostly disappointed with my time with the game, because I didn't feel like either of the modes ended up grabbing me the way I wanted them to.
Sure. But I think that's probably where we're going to leave it. I don't have too much more to say. From a recommendation standpoint, I would just think about what type of roguelike player you are and what type of game appeals to you. Because if you're more like me, I think you're really going to vibe with Gunner. I think you're going to take issues with some of its structural elements. I think its gameplay could have been a little bit more refined in terms of the way that its aesthetic works with that to help instead of hinder it, because sometimes the art style does feel like a hindrance. And this game, I really do think, desperately needs online play, traditional online play, especially since it's coming out across all platforms.
Yeah.
Having it just locked to local on something like this here Nintendo Switch is not great. But on the whole, I did enjoy my time with the game.
Yep. I personally can't really recommend it for the plethora of reasons that I mentioned before, but if you do end up picking it up, having a great time with it, leave a comment in the comments. Call me stupid. I don't care. I just like the interaction. So that, I think that about does it for this review. Thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you to the developers for sending us the code. We really appreciate that. You are our first sort of major embargoed game. It felt good. Felt like I was moving up in the world getting that. So that was the best part of this experience, was getting a game code and being under embargo and feeling like, oh, I'm a professional now.
Yes, it was very fun watching you be under embargo, because I've been under embargo like 18 bajillion times. So I'm like, this is old hat. I get to teach you the ropes. You know what I'm saying? Teach you the ropes. So it's a lot of fun.
Padawan is becoming the master.
Look at that. But yes, I think that's about where we're going to leave it for GONNER2. Leave a comment in the description. A comment in the description. You can't do that.
No,
go to
that's ridiculous.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to separate those trains of thought. I want you to go to the description and follow us on Twitter.
Oh.
And then I want you to go to the comment and subscribe. And then go to the comment section and let us know what you think of Gunner. Because here's the thing. Yell at us, hate us, love us. The interaction helps the channel. We'll be back very, very soon with even more great content, reviews, discussions, reactions, interactions between the Backlog boys, the best boys on the internet. We'll talk to you later.
What are you fucking smiling at, you piece of shit?